How's it going? Welcome back to another great video with your host, The Savior. Today is goddamn crazy because it feels for many that they have been in a slumber for 20 goddamn years. Over 20 years, it seems like. We have finally been gifted with Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, the next game in that series, and it has been a very long time since the last game came out.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
I'm 28 years old now, so you do the maths when the last game came out, so it's safe to say that I'm not really familiar with this game until recently when I played the new Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. And I've got to say that I'm honestly impressed, because fighting games, it's hard for them to stand apart. It's hard for them to, carve out their own unique identity when the genre itself is quite similar in many aspects. Obviously, there's a huge difference between Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat or something like that, but they share fundamentally the similar DNA, okay? Fatal Fury is doing something truly unique, and it is a complete, overhaul of the original games. Obviously, you would have to expect that. It's kind of got this comic-esque manga aesthetic to it, where it kind of overlays the screen in this kind of comic, like papery kind of art style when they are pulling off their special moves, which I think looks pretty awesome. And I just love the characters in this. They all look so good, and I just really love how they're designed. And the jiggle physics help with that, because I'm a man of culture. Now, before we get into this Fatal Fury City of the Wolves review, let's take a look at the lovely website Instant Gaming. And thank you, Instant Gaming, for sponsoring today's video and for being my official partner. Now, as you can see, it's not currently up on Instant Gaming, but it will be, so keep an eye out, because what is so special about Instant Gaming is that every game that comes out, new games that are released, are all on heavy discounts. Day one releases already come with massive discounts. Assassin's Creed Shadows being a prime example. This game only just came out and it's already at a 31% discount, which is absolutely crazy. And the same thing with the new GTA Enhanced version, that's already at a 60% discount for PC, which is crazy. But luckily, Instant Gaming doesn't just cover PC gaming needs, it covers PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo games. And you can 100% trust that what you pay for, you actually get. Okay, I can personally vouch for Instant Gaming. I only use them now. I don't even use Steam. I always check Instant Gaming first because the amount of money you can save is ridiculous. And as you can see here, it's got a 4.7 Trustpilot score out of almost 1 million reviews. And because Instant Gaming has all of your gaming needs covered in one single place, it also comes with discounts on pre-orders, which is absolutely nutty stuff. So you can get the new Doom: The Dark Ages plus 2 days early access for already a 23% discount, which is quite insane. As games get more expensive, you really need to find, like a service like Instant Gaming. It's just crazy the amount of savings that Instant Gaming can give you. So it's a little gift from me to you, because why pay full price if you're gonna play new games, even if they're not newly released, they have older games, they have new games. Just use Instant Gaming, use my link, because you will save money on any game going forward. So make sure that you bookmark it, come back to my YouTube channel and just use the link for any game in the future, because you're saving money and it helps support the channel, so it's a win-win. And I'm just really happy that this partnership exists, because I can give something back to the Wise One community. So thank you so much, and yeah, thanks Instant Gaming for sponsoring the video. So today I'm going to give you my Fatal Fury City of the Wolves review. This is based on the early access coverage, so do bear that in mind that this is an early review, not a full review. But I can basically give you my impressions so far, because I've played enough that I feel confident to give you an early review like I do with all of my early access coverage. I actually got to play this twice, one at an event last year at Tokyo Game Show, and then recently as well with the early access gameplay. But honestly, this is shaping up to be a very fluid and accessible fighter game. But you have to be prepared that a lot of people are going to go into this more for that tactical gameplay, because there is a lot of depth here for the hardcore fans of Fatal Fury. And what I like is they're trying to cater to both audiences, the die-hard fans and then newcomers, because a lot of people are new to this series like me. So you have like your casual controls and your more serious arcade controls, and they actually separate some of the core gameplay mechanics for more casual audience or for the more veteran players out there. And I think that's quite a smart move, so they're kind of doing both sides here.
Now you have my attention.
I hope you enjoy this Fatal Fury game review and this Fatal Fury City of the Wolves review. Let's dive into all of the details and get straight into this. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Becoming a wise one today truly would mean absolutely everything. If you love gaming analysis, early access reviews, philosophical content, you're in the right place as I cover all of that on this channel. Become a wise one today. And let's get into this early access review as objective as I can be. I always tell you if I have a bias or not. I will give you the positives and negatives as well. I don't do, like a score at the end of the video, just positives and negatives. But let me just say this first, I don't have a bias towards fighting games. This isn't exactly my particular genre that I love. I do enjoy them, for multiplayer and just, a good time with friends or, like my partner. But I don't play them except casually or, usually by myself. I'm much more into RPGs and stuff like that. So that's where I'm coming from. So I can give you like a newcomer's perspective on this game, but also talk about the hardcore features. So let's get into it. So the first positive that I'm going to give it is the fact that it's retaining, some classic elements for the fans of the original series. So what I mean by that is they're adding in old tracks here, some of the old original OST stuff. They're also doing remixes, so you can choose what kind of soundtrack you want. And I really love when games do that. They pay homage and they allow you to play with the original soundtrack, similar with Dragon's Dogma, or many other games like Kunitsugami and stuff like that. I really do love that feature in games that pay homage to the original. I also think that the art style is just a big step up. It really does pop. It's got a really cool manga, almost anime aesthetic to it, but without going overboard. So for people who aren't big fans of Street Fighter or something like this, I think this hits such a perfect balance of the characters looking realistic, not overdone. And that brings me on to my next positive, and that is the fact that basically in this game there is a single player option, okay? And similar to some of the newer Street Fighter games, it's kind of, a hub-based open section where you can travel around, the city and challenge different fighters, okay? So they're trying to copy some elements from Street Fighter, but a small negative is you won't be able to customize your fighters, or create your own custom characters. There is some cosmetic tweaks like changing the hairstyles, the colors of some outfits and stuff like that, but don't go in expecting to create your own character. It's not going to do that. So that's fine if you have a favorite character you like, but if you wanted to make your own, then you won't be able to do that. Also, in the story mode, how the story is actually being told to you is through cinematics, okay? And they're not full-on cutscenes, it's more of this kind of slideshow manga aesthetic where, a character pops up and there's some text on screen. So nothing too fancy, quite minimalist, but the story isn't really the main focus of this game. It is, of course, the combat and the beat-em-up gameplay. Another quality of life feature that they've added, which I have to give a big positive because I just think that's super cool. I didn't really get to experience much of this myself because I was just doing some of the main fights, but basically you can play with this feature called clone mode. So after you've actually, done a successful or not successful, in my case, couple of rounds with an opponent, online, or if it's a computer, it doesn't really matter. You can actually replay that battle, and it records the moves that was already done, so you can actually learn and get better, and that's so cool. That's really important in a fighting game like this, where it is all about your timing, getting better, learning the combos, and this does have a high ceiling. This does have a high difficulty ceiling if you want to reach the best of the best and you want to, play competitively. I honestly think it's going to have the same scene as Street Fighter if there's an audience for it, because honestly, the amount of different combos and, variations in attacks and stuff like that, it's a little bit overwhelming. Trust me, there's a huge difference between a novice like me playing and an expert at this game playing the game. So I really do like that there is a proper ceiling. And then, of course, you get special moves like this. So, it certainly has some fan service. Like all, high-quality fighting games, they know their target demographic, okay? So the controls vary from smart style to arcade mode, and like I said, they actually separate some of the gameplay features. So some of it will be more accessible, where you don't have to do as many combos to unlock the abilities later on. Some of it will be more difficult in arcade mode, but it will allow for more, like professional moves to be pulled off, greater combos and stuff like that. So it depends on your playstyle and how confident you feel, learning and chaining all of these attacks together. It's not all going hand to foot combat. They are actual weapons in this game, like a bow staff, little fans that you can use as weapons, and different martial arts depending on the character that you're playing as. There's a weird football promotion as well with Ronaldo, I think, which is kind of ridiculous, but you can literally use a football as a weapon, which is quite hilarious. But I just like that variation, that, you're not always going to see the same moveset, not everyone is identical, and if they are trained in a particular martial arts, that will actually be, pulled off effectively, depending on the speed of that character and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of, flexibility and experimentation with which character really feels good for you. Another positive / negative, depending on where you stand, but not every fighting game needs to be graphic. Not everything needs to be Mortal Kombat. And this game doesn't really have much violence in it, which some people might not like. But personally, I think this is good for just a broader audience, for people playing at arcades. If this gets released in Japan, I hope it does, in arcades and stuff like that, and just people who want to play a fighting game with your family. Like I said, you can really cater the experience to a hardcore fighting mode in arcade mode, and then you can have the more casual audience that play it with more easier controls, and then the lack of violence and all that kind of stuff allows it to be accessible to the whole family. Now, on release, you get 17 characters, but there are more characters coming. So, that's a pretty good roster, I would say, for a fighting game. Not amazing, I do miss the old Tekken games. That was some of the best stuff I've experienced, and the wide variation in characters was just hilarious. But, it's enough, and I would say that it's kind of cool that they are adding more. I just hope they do that in a good way and not just make everyone pay for, these special characters that don't really add much. And then finally, how you actually pull off these special moves, okay? It's all to do with this thing called the Rev system. And basically, depending on what control scheme you're playing as, in arcade mode or in basic mode, this will affect basically changing your Rev abilities, okay? So once your gauge is filled up, you will have these 2 bars to pull off special moves, or a super special ability. That's the most powerful attack that you can pull off, unless if you get stun locked and stuff like that. There's parries, there's fake outs, there's feints, but some moves are only tied to the more, veteran arcade control scheme, and that's an interesting system. And like I said, I do like how they did that, because then 2 different audiences can play the game. But it is quite interesting that they've kind of walled it off into 2 separate control schemes. If you're playing it on the more simple control scheme, then basically it's easier to pull off these abilities, and it's going to release the whole gauge at once. So I really do like that there is a lot of difficulty curve to it, a learning curve to it, and the fact that it's accessible to different audiences. I think that's pretty cool. And honestly, it just looks like a good fighting game, and it's nice that we are getting old series like this, being brought back into the modern era, and I just think they're doing some pretty cool stuff with it. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm super pumped for this game. Like I said, it's not exactly the genre that I'm very interested in, but I thought I would cover it for, die-hard fans, as it is an old series coming back. I do want to encourage bringing back older series and bringing them into the modern world. That's why I wanted to highlight this. That's why I wanted to give you this Fatal Fury City of the Wolves review, but it's not exactly my genre of game that I will be playing myself, but I just thought I would give you a fair review on it. And basically the gameplay that I actually tried out myself, it's all very fluid. I didn't actually play the multiplayer. It was, with just like a computer, so I can't really speak about the lag and how good the connection servers are and stuff like that. But the gameplay itself is very smooth, very responsive, no, input lag to the controls. It all feels really snappy and responsive, and that's very important in a fighting game, that all of your moves pull off as soon as you input them. And it really feeds into that power fantasy as you get better and better. and it's not, you know, like a level up system. It's all about your own player skill, and I just like that type of experience. So there you go, that is the new Fatal Fury review. Let me know what you think about the game down below in the comments, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace out.